I'm Letty, and in 2011, I was diagnosed with dysautonomia. Now that's the fancy name for it. Basically, it means any type of illness that can affect your autonomic nervous system. Now, what's that? Your autonomic nervous system is basically everything that you do automatically within your body. If you can imagine your heart rate, it ticks away by itself. You don't have to think about it. Your blood pressure, your endocrine system, your hormones, your urge to need to pee or need to eat or sweating, all that sort of stuff, all the things that you don't have to think about that affects your autonomic nervous system. That is a type of dysautonomia. Now, the ones that I have is I was diagnosed specifically with POTS, which is Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome. Long story short, when I change my posture from either a seated to a standing position or from a lying to a sitting position, my blood pressure drops quite dramatically, my heart rate goes sky high, and I also have neurocardiogenic syncope, which means I faint. I've got chronic fainting as a result of that as well. So I can pass out loads. But yeah, what happened was basically, I'll keep it brief. There's loads of ups and downs with my history, but we'll try and keep it on the upside today. But basically in 2011, got up one morning, was getting ready for work at home and noticed on the way to the bathroom to brush my teeth that I wasn't going to make it either to the bathroom or back out of it. So the first thing I did was called my husband, and he got to me just as I started to faint. And then we noticed that every time he tried to remove me from the lying down position on the ground to sitting up, I'd go again. So obviously, first thing he did was call the doctor. They urged me to get an ambulance and take me to the hospital. Basically, a month and a half later, yeah, it was a long time in hospital. First doctor basically was just like, oh, she's being weak. Tell her get out of bed, walk around a bit more, and she'll be fine. And my husband was like, listen, I have to take her home and take care of her. Can you back that up with a letter to state that she's fit enough to go home? And they were like, no, we're not willing to furnish you with that. And he was like, yeah, you're just telling her get out of bed, she'll be fine. Like, he had basically, long story short, we demanded another opinion, which is a pity, but that won't be the first or the last time you'll hear about that. Never be afraid to ask for a second opinion if you feel in your heart and soul that there's something going on. So we're lucky we did, because within hours, a new doctor was on the case, and he did what's known as a tilt table test. It's a type of autonomic testing where they lie you on a bed that can swivel up and down. You're attached to all these monitors, nothing invasive. It's just like blood pressure, heart rate, sweat glands, things like that. And they slowly bring the bed up to an upright position of 90 degrees, and they monitor your vital signs while you're on that. And that gave a very positive diagnosis of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So that was the start of everything. And that was just the very tippy start of it. Because from there, I was like, well, where did I get this lemon? POTS doesn't just happen. Well, sometimes it can just happen out of the blue, but more often than not, it can happen after a virus. And the reason we're talking about this today, in case you're like, what's this got to do with ME? Where actually the symptoms there's huge overlaps in the symptoms of both ME and POTS, or dysautonomia in general. Anything that affects your autonomic nervous system will have similar effects. So that's why I'm talking about this. So throughout the years go by, things start to get slowly worse for me. And we're trying to figure out, look, this must have come from somewhere. We need to get to the cause of it. Long story short, I had to do fundraising to go to London. We thought that I might have something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder, which basically connective tissue is everywhere in your body. It doesn't just affect the joints, but it's most commonly known for dislocating joints, tearing muscles, tearing organs, things like that. There's one particular type of, there's lots of different types of EDS. I think there's, I want to say 12 in all, but I'm not 100% on that. Don't quote me on that. But there is one that can rupture blood vessels. It can be very, very serious. Thankfully, I found out that I have hypermobility type, which is, it's not the very dangerous type, but still it comes with its own symptoms, and it can cause POTS as a secondary illness. So went to London. The specialist there did confirm EDS, and it was a good thing because it actually helped my team back home know how to treat me and how to look after me and things like that. So working with the doctor that diagnosed me properly the first time in 2011, he was very good to work with me with treatments. Like obviously you get given lifestyle changes. If your blood pressure is low, drink black coffee, add salt to your diet. If you've got low blood volume, which will also affect your blood pressure and heart rate, blood volume is basically the amount of blood that is in your veins, right? It's pretty basic, but how you increase that is plenty of hydration. That's why when we're sweating in weather like this right now, it's not friends. It's not friends of those of us who don't like the heat. I can't stand it myself, so I'm finding this weather very tough. But staying hydrated can raise the blood pressure, raise the heart, or not raise the heart rate, but balance it. Simple little things like that. So obviously I tried all the lifestyle changes, but there was only so much I could do on my own. I needed medical help with as well as that. So I spoke with the doctor with regards to medicines that might be able to help. And thankfully, over the course of about a year or two, every few weeks, changing the doses, things like that, we got a balance that actually seemed to really help me. Now, obviously, there's no cure for dysautonomia as such. You treat the symptoms, not the actual disease as a whole. And I will always have like flares of the illness and things like that. But ultimately, I can keep it very well managed. I understand the feeling that you get prior to fainting. I know, to get down low to the ground, get my body down low to try and raise the blood pressure. So lying down with your legs elevated is actually one of the best things to do to rebalance your heart rate and to bring the blood pressure back up. And you think of it this way, I used to be a fitness instructor before my health went to pot, pardon the pun. But basically from knowing that the biggest muscles in your body are in your legs and your thighs, and obviously the biggest amount of muscle mass will hold the biggest amount of blood volume as well. So when you lie down flat and raise the legs, it's pushing the blood back up into your heart and up into your oxygen back up into your brain. And that can prevent you from passing out, and it can help balance the autonomic nervous system again. So a couple of good years, couple of very bad years where I was in and out of ICU for a while, and I ended up in a wheelchair as well, but that was mainly because of the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, not the POTS, so don't get confused with that. I was having joint issues with that, so you shouldn't technically end up in a wheelchair with POTS, but a lot of people with the fainting side of it find actually that something like a wheelchair can be a great tool, and people shouldn't be afraid of that either, I don't think. If you need something that helps you, be it a medical aid or some sort of medicine, or even if it's your breathing and visualizing techniques, whatever works for you, you find that thing that works with you best, and go with it. But that's what worked for me, basically, combination of medicine, lifestyle changes, and grabbing onto creativity everywhere I could, because this lemon happened to me a year after I just finished my master's. And I was hoping to, start a particular style of work. And I had been working in it for a few years already, which was photography. So I'd gone from fitness instructor through college, wanted to do art teaching for a while, did that for a little bit, and then went on to photography. So that was the thing that I stuck with ultimately. And with this, things got worse and worse. And I found I wasn't able to lift the heavy camera gear. I couldn't be doing 12 hours of a wedding of a given day, and sometimes longer if it goes on into the evening. I wanted to do the job that I wanted to do, the hobby that I loved as a job, but I did it for a while and it was okay. And I would urge anybody to try it at least once. But now, thankfully, with the way things have gone, now that I can't work with what I have, I've returned to it as a hobby again, and I'm approaching it with a different attitude. And I feel it makes things easier and more fun. And when there isn't deadlines involved or bridezilla running after you looking for something, and you're like, okay, I can enjoy this now again. That's lovely. I started crochet about 2 years ago, something my grandmother tried to teach me when I was a teeny thing, and end up, I make little plushies and stuff like that. Keeps me creative and I love it. And I went through art college and stuff like that, so drawing and all the usual stuff. But I find creativity really helps keep your mental health in order, and I feel your mental health is just as important as your physical health. With regards to what symptoms you may display if you have something like dysautonomia, like I said already, blood pressure, heart rate. Now, your blood pressure can be both high and low depending on the type of dysautonomia. POTS usually has low blood pressure, but POTS is diagnosed based on your heart rate, not the blood pressure. So they usually go hand in hand, but it's the tachycardia there, it's the heart rate, the high heart rate that they're actually diagnosing based on, not your blood pressure. But usually it's low blood pressure. Like that, if you find excessive heat too much or excessive cold too much, if you are having difficulty sweating, or if you're having difficulty with anything that you don't normally have to think about, like going to the loo, or if your gut and your gut health is affected and you're finding that you're not eating as often as you should or more than you think you should, all these automatic things will have a knock-on effect and give your doctors clues. And basically the best thing to do then is to get referred for a tilt table test. And there is no autonomic specialists in Ireland, just so people know, but there's lots of doctors who have an interest and who can diagnose. So that's the best way to go about it. Other than that, that's just a very, very general overview. In 2011, I set up Irish Dysautonomia Awareness, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Facebook would be the most busiest area with all of us having like regular chats and things like that.